welcome to another episode of This Week in Cleantech. It's a roundup of the week's biggest stories you need to know in climate and clean energy in 15 minutes or less. Today is Friday, October 18th, 2024. I'm Renewable Energy World Editor-in-Chief John Engel. Evan Halper from the Washington Post will be back on the show shortly. But for now, I'm joined by Cleantech PR veteran Mike Casey of Tigercom. Hey, Mike.
Hi, John Engel. Are you back at home and safe and sound?
I am. Back in Asheville as of last Sunday, so it's good to be home. It is, I don't know how deep I can go into it now because it is still pretty shocking to see the level of devastation and suffering here. But my family is okay, and doing what we can to help our neighbors.
All right. Well, we've got a word of praise from Michael Perrone of FM Global, who's a listener or viewer, said we, quote, do an excellent summary each week. So I wanted to pass that along to you. And we're glad you are making it through the aftermath of the storm.
Yeah, appreciate that. And to all our listeners, we really appreciate you for sending in those story recommendations and nominations for Cleantecher of the Week. You can do that at rew@clarionevents.com. All right, Mike, first story.
Wall Street Journal, Jennifer Hiller. Google backs new nuclear plans to power AI. All right, John.
Yeah, a lot of AI and nuke stories these past couple of weeks. Really interesting stuff. So Google's agreed to buy the power generated by 7 small nuclear power reactors equivalent to 500 megawatts or enough to power a mid-sized city. The deal sets up construction of some of the U.S.'s first small modular nuclear reactors, potentially a faster and less costly alternative to large plants, though we haven't seen them deployed yet. This year, big tech companies have shown increasing interest in nuclear power to meet the rising electricity demands of their expanding data centers. But unlike Microsoft's recent investment to recommission the 3 Mile Island power plant, this is an investment in small modular reactors, or SMRs. The idea behind SMRs is to make them in a repeatable process in a factory so they're scalable and cost decrease along a curve like we've seen with solar and batteries. Amazon also signing a deal in the last couple of days to back the development of small nuclear power reactors in the U.S. this week. And really interesting, Mike, too, to see these tech providers investing in the companies as well, instead of just virtual power purchase agreements. So small modular reactors, take that with a grain of salt. They're still pretty freaking big. Mike, your thoughts?
I think you're barely constraining your new tech harsing right now.
I don't mind it, but I think, SMRs being baked into resource adequacy plans by utilities that, are saying that we can deliver these by 2030 are pretty far-fetched. That's my skepticism, is we've got to deploy one first.
Fair enough. So I think the energy transition is having a moment here. So you've got these tech companies, which form a critical subset of DCPs, direct corporate purchasers. They were the ones who drove the clean energy transition to a large extent during the Trump years. They've continued to play a big role. Now the question is, with AI and EV and data centers, what are these tech companies going to do? Are they going to stick with their sustainability pledges, or are they going to just cast those to the wind and start revamping coal and gas plants? That remains to be seen. It seems that small nuclear reactors are a little bit of their get out of trouble card, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, there's the history of waste and cost overruns and operational mishaps. They're trying to scale the different form of this technology. We'll see if the industry can address those. Only time will tell. John, story number 2.
Yeah, and just quickly before we move on, a good tease to our guest this week, Evan Halper, and his story about coal and big tech and whether that's fueling a bit of a revival there. Second story is from Alexandra White and Jamie Smith from the Financial Times, titled, "Is LNG worse for the climate than coal?" Michael.
Cornell professor Robert Howarth has a paper that influenced the Biden administration's pause on LNG exports. The professor found that LNG's carbon footprint is 33% larger than coal's over a 20-year period due to methane leaks. We all know that methane is a potent potent greenhouse gas. It's 28 more times more potent than carbon dioxide. It doesn't last as long in the atmosphere, but it's a big deal in the short term. So the thinking by the professor is that although coal consumes or releases more carbon pollution during the burning, gas can leak in the atmosphere in terms of its total life cycle use, and methane gets out, and that's a problem. So many have accused Professor Holworth having a flawed paper, and they're saying the Biden administration shouldn't have used it to the extent that it had. I will say that fine if you want to criticize the professor's work, but you have to say whether or not you're getting money from the gas industry up front. John?
Yeah, and some of that criticism suggests that the professor used the most extreme assumptions for methane pollution from LNG exports and combined them, leading to an exaggerated outcome. Whether this analysis gets it right looms large in the debate over whether to ban fracking or restrict LNG exports. If LNG leaks are minimal, we could cut global carbon pollution by exporting it to countries that would otherwise burn coal. But if the leaks are as bad as this paper suggests, increasing LNG exports could be a net negative for the climate. Mike, our third story.
Ben Geeman, Axios. IEA report signals age of electricity. This is really an interesting one, John.
Yeah, Ben's the best. So the International Energy Agency's new World Energy Outlook finds that over the last 10 years, electricity use has grown at twice the pace of overall energy demand, mostly because the world is shifting toward EVs and electrification. But between 2023 and 2035, they predict electricity demand will grow at 6 times the pace of overall energy demand. However, clean energy hasn't kept pace with the power demand growth, causing global carbon pollution from electricity to jump 20% from 2010 to 2023. To effectively reduce carbon pollution, we need to accelerate the addition of clean energy sources to not only satisfy all that new demand, but also replace existing fossil fuel generation. Mike.
It's a very techie episode this week. We just discussed how Amazon, Google, and Microsoft are investing in nukes because data centers are contributing so much to the growth in the load. However, on a global scale, this report shows that the data center demand will be trivial compared to the demand from increasing EV adoption and increased use of air conditioning, which I find just totally fascinating and something for us to think about here. John, the fourth story.
Yeah, our fourth story is by Adele Peters from Fast Company, titled "Watch This Robot Expertly Take Apart Electronics So They Can Be Used Again." We love circularity, Michael.
Do you love it? Just listener warning here. This has a cool new tech flavor and invites harshing from John Engel. So we're just going to watch to see if you're
I
on
already
your best
blocked the
behavior.
domain. I didn't even read the story, so I'll read what's in front of me.
The name of this company is...
I only read Evan Halper because I know he reports on real things that exist in the world.
You are such an apple polisher. I can't believe
go
that.
ahead.
All right.
I don't want to eat into his time.
This company, first off, the company is cool just because it has a cool name, Malg. That's like cool, right? That sounds like a sci-fi film.
Sounds like a boondoggle.
Oh, here it comes. Right.
All right. I'm
right
just kidding.
cue.
I know nothing about them, so I shouldn't say that. That's just not nice.
That hasn't stopped you before.
You know what, man? It's been a rough few weeks. Like I'm cracking from the hip right now. So no offense to Malg.
Okay.
Keep going.
All right. They make robotic microfactories to take electronics apart so the components can be used without contributing to the 60 million ton e-waste problem. I've been concerned about e-waste forever. I love this company. The robots are designed to fit into existing e-waste facilities, can take apart a typical server in about 5 minutes. The robots can give components a longer life and keep them at the highest possible value. John, you better like this tech because of at least the company's cool name.
Yeah, it is a cool name. So they raised about $5.5 million. Got the backing of Dell and HP, so that's really cool. While environmentally beneficial, this isn't entirely circular, though, as some higher tech products need to be made with newly manufactured components. It's really more of an example of downcycling or reusing than recycling, as many of the materials that Malg extracts from e-waste go into a different set of products. Malg. And
that pains you to say the name of that company.
I can't do it. All right, Mike, our guest this week in our fifth story.
A returning guest.
A realist in our midst.
Evan Halper being greeted with confetti as he shows back up on the show by John Engel. He's still writing for the Washington Post, and he has got a story. A utility promised to stop burning coal. Then Google and Meta came to town. Evan Halper, welcome back. We want people to read your story, but if they have not yet, what is the big takeaway?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. And I need to look up Mog because I haven't been up on that. So learn something every time I listen to your show.
Now, if you see Evan reporting on this in the next few weeks, then I'm going to really have to eat crow, because then that's the proof of concept, is to get in the Washington Post and have the Evan Halper byline on it.
Evan, you want to look at Star Trek season 4, episode 5. Mog's right in there.
Okay, excellent. Right. So what I wrote about over the weekend was companies you've actually heard of, Google and Meta. They came to Omaha and just wanted to build these data centers, and the amount of energy they're using in Omaha is just, immense. And so, of course, we know when these tech companies come in, they make these promises that they're going to match everything, all the energy they use with clean energy. It's going to be, 100%, what do they call it, net zero. And so we had a question. Why is the coal plant in North Omaha, it's kind of an environmental justice community. It's a minority community, low income, and the coal plant was supposed to close in 2023. And at the time, the local utility called the Omaha Public Power District is talking about all of this demand that they have, and the crushing demand, and that they couldn't get these new gas plants on quickly enough. They couldn't get all the renewable energy that they wanted to bring on quickly enough. And so lo and behold, the coal plant is now planned to burn at least until 2026. And when we dug into this, we were looking at the question of, well, do the data centers play a role in here? Is this on Google and is this on Meta? And Google and Meta say no. Look at all these renewable projects we bring into the grid. But when you really break it down, this is where it gets complicated. I mean, you guys understand this. A lot of our readers do not yet. That even though these companies are buying all this clean energy from other places, somewhere on this grid that expands across 14 states, when they come into a community like Omaha and they start using, one data center uses more electricity than half the homes in Omaha, it causes problems for the utility. And the utility needs to create 24/7 power. So in this case, we did the math, and clearly these data centers are pushing the continuation of this coal plant, which is not a good look for Google and Meta, but we're seeing this kind of thing happen all over the country right now.
You mentioned it's not a good look, and Mike earlier framed it with, pursuit of environmental goals with this thirst for power. It seems, at least publicly, that even the tech giants with the most ambitious net zero targets, or even beyond net zero, are kind of okay with, we care more about the grid connection than we do with the initial backlash that we might get because we try to cover up an Oklahoma data center with some RECs and a virtual power purchase agreement for a plant that's, 400, 500 miles away. That's my sense, at least. I don't know if you've been able to draw a conclusion one way or the other, Evan, but it seems like grid connection matters above all else right now.
Yeah, it does, and to a certain extent, it feels like we're getting gaslit by these companies because they're out here saying, you'll talk to the executives, they'll say, no, you don't know what you're talking about. We're totally clean. But if you understand power and you start looking into these documents and the permits and the patterns of the way they're using their power, it's clear that they need this energy. They need 24/7 energy, and they don't have it, and they don't have it clean. And so they, like you said, they sort of paper it over, with these RECs or with these contracts and bring it onto the grid in other places. And I think that there's a lot of tension inside these companies, from what we understand. There's there's sustainability teams that speak the language. They'll say, this needs to be clean energy. We made these promises. We're pioneers of the energy transition. But then, the technical people, the people who have to secure the energy, they're just like, look, there's an AI arms race going on. We're going to lose it to China. We're going to lose it to Russia. This is a national security imperative. And the administration talks this way too. And we just need to get the power. And, they'll use terms like it's bridge power. We're sort of bridging the divide till we can get clean energy up. But if you are building a new gas plant, or if you're extending the life of a coal plant, that is kind of a mess. I don't need to explain that to your audience of the impacts that can have. But then you're building new gas. Dominion just came out with its integrated resource plan this week, and the amount of new fossil fuels that they want to bring on, and they're talking about it just being a bridge situation. But this is the data center capital of the world, Northern Virginia. They don't have enough energy. And these companies right now, they seem to be of the posture that we just need to get these data centers up and running, and we'll eventually figure it out.
We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are You've already answered the question I was going to ask, which is, how much faith do you have in the tech companies holding on to their sustainability pledges in the face of all this business opportunity? I think we don't need to ask that. I also don't want to ask if you're feeling lonely now that Fred Dvorak left the Wall Street Journal and you're the only one left on the renewable energy transition skepticism beat. So,
well, it's funny you say that because you guys were talking about the SMR story, and when Google made that announcement, I know these companies, I know how they work, and I share John's skepticism in that, and I apologize that I keep dinging here. I thought I shut everything off, but your skepticism about the SMRs, we don't have a single reactor up and running. We have one design that was authorized by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, but then the company that was going to use that design sort of moved on to another design, and the plant that they were going to build in Idaho to power these small power districts, these utilities in Utah, that fell apart because the costs kept going up and up and up. No one's shown how to do this cheaply. So, kudos to Google, kudos to Amazon for sort of investing in these companies, and maybe they will be able to scale them up, but they don't have solutions. They need just a tremendous amount of power very quickly. They can't do it with renewable power alone, especially with all the holdups that are happening on the grid right now. It's the wait queues to get a solar farm or a big wind project hooked up we're now up to like 5 to 7 years in some places.
Wow.
And so they need all this energy really quick, and they're looking at nuclear, but we did see Microsoft got all the energy from 3 Mile Island. They made that deal with Constellation, but there's not a lot of sort of legacy nuclear plants that are already built sitting around waiting to offload their energy to data centers. And then the other answer, yes, are these SMRs, but we don't know if those are going to exist in 2030, 2035, or never.
All right. Well, we're going to have to get going with our Cleantech of the week. But Evan, in all seriousness, I think you're asking the important, tough questions. And John, let's go to our Cleantecher of the week.
You just applauded Evan for asking these tough questions. Evan and I are singing from the same songbook here, and you criticize me for being this grouchy curmudgeon on the show all the time. It seems like I'm just like a pseudo Evan Halper, like a poor man's Evan Halper.
Evan,
like a very, very poor man's Evan Halper.
Evan, here's what we're dealing with. It's not just that he was a climate refugee for a couple of weeks. It's that his number two in the last episode attempted a coup, a January 6th coup. And there's a lot of problems at Renewable Energy World. He's got to straighten out with Paul next week on the off of the show. It was ugly. So you missed the ugliness. You missed the drama. John, can we please go to Cleantech of the week? It's not about you, my friend. Come on.
Happy to. Michael Graham of the Columbia-Willamette Clean Cities and Communities Coalition. Michael leads the Empower Project, which helps workplaces install EV chargers at their offices for free, and is a workplace EV charging coach. Next Monday, the Empower team's accepting nominations until the end of the year for the EV Charging Champion. Any organization that's gone above and beyond to offer EV chargers to their employees is eligible. Congratulations to Michael.
All right. We want to thank our wonderful producer, Brian Mendez, and Claire Quirin and Alex Peterson from Gathering Stories. John, you should know that all three of them voted to keep you on the show and not let Paul come and take your place. I just want you to know that
they don't have a say, and neither do you.
They've got your back. They've got your back.
Thank you, Evan Halper, for joining us once again. Hopefully there's a third time, but Lord help us. Please subscribe, give us feedback, and share those story recommendations, and go read Evan's story in the Washington Post. All right, Mike, I'll see you next time.
Take care, pal. Bye.